So, as always, we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toil without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, again, thank you so much. And if you can please just introduce yourself for our listeners and viewers and tell us about your remarkable work.
Well, thank you so much. Noah Miller, one of the co-founders of Rho Impact, and I manage our advisory practice as the Chief Advisory Officer. And we are a climate advisory and software firm. And really what we are focused on is creating access and democratizing access to better tools and data so that everybody's able to contribute to a just and inclusive and equitable transition to a low carbon economy. Um, and our MO, in terms of the social impact here is really making sure that these skills, knowledge, tools are not isolated in a boardroom in a PwC or KPMG or Deloitte. The skills are packaged in a way that anybody is able to contribute to a more climate resilient future and do the work that our team has been working on for about a decade to be able to do it on their own and at scale. So really democratizing access to the tools needed to make a real impact on the net zero transition.
Mm, awesome. Very good. So, and what inspires you about the work that you do?
Yeah, well, personally, there's so much discussion about the intersection of environmental and social impact, and a lot of work around, or a lot of discussion around the just transition, knowing that the folks that are the most vulnerable are going to receive the brunt of climate change risks and damage. And that's a known fact. It's been studied both, domestically and internationally, that the most vulnerable are the first to essentially experience the catastrophic impacts of climate change financially, communal wise, operationally, in our day to day. And we really want to make sure, the thing that gets me excited is just making people more effective at creating the impact that they want in the world, particularly folks that are working in creating access and inclusion to sustainable products and services in low income, vulnerable populations. So that's what really gets me excited is, although part of our argument may be there is a lot of commercial opportunity to be made in the just transition. What drives us and me, myself philosophically, is just making sure that folks that are about to bear the greatest brunt of this work are able to get in front of it and actively kind of change the narrative and change the future direction of their community.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. So, like on the flip side, what are some of the challenges and barriers you face in your work, and how have you overcome them or in the process of overcoming them?
Yeah. I'd say the biggest barrier is misinformation and apathy. At the end of the day, it's like there is so much active work behind the scenes to rewrite the science that has been well understood and accepted, the sort of social work that we need to do as we're starting to experience the physical risks of climate change. And it's well documented, well studied, yet there still seems to be an attack on this evidence of the good things that need to happen in order to, maintain an economy as the world continues to change. So the biggest challenge I would say is getting people to see that not only is this, a moral obligation, which commercially doesn't really stand, don't want to be the arbiter of good virtues and bad virtues, but at the end of the day, it's good managerial sense. It's management effectiveness to be able to help both your own company and your customers and your employees transition, go through all the work to transition to this low carbon economy. So the biggest challenge I would say is just really the fight against some of these commonly accepted principles. And I would say the same people that are fighting DEI are fighting climate change. And we know that the data shows more inclusive, equitable, diverse organizations are more effective in global challenges and global opportunities. And climate change presents perhaps some of the greatest opportunities of our time in terms of what we're able to commercialize and do in the world. So it's really I would say the biggest challenge are those forces at play and how they manifest, in our interactions with clients and with prospects. But I think at the end of the day, it's like cash is king, and there's a lot of money to be made in this commercial transition to low carbon products, services, and technologies. And the people, and we need to subsidize access. So it's not just the eco elite that are able to transition, but we're all able to transition in a more inclusive, resilient, kind of global economy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is great. So tell me, is there anything new you're working on or anything you'd like to share or amplify at this time?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you asked that. So, back to the creating access to the skills and capabilities to be able to impact the climate and contribute to this. We released our software tool, which is kind of our flagship offering called Koi, KOI.eco. And essentially, that's packaged what our team has been working on for the past decade as consultants in the space into software that enables anybody to essentially leverage the capabilities and knowledge that we've developed over the years and able to act on it at scale. So really being able to forecast the potential impact of all these different low carbon products, services, technologies, energy sources, things that need to be invested in so we don't, so the world doesn't end essentially, right? As the data shows. So that's what's really exciting is, things that used to be isolated to a PWC for 100 grand is now in the hands of anybody through our platform, and they're able to do the same work that we would, that we had been advising some of these big groups on. So that's what's really exciting is again, teaching people, the whole teach a man how to fish. That whole concept is, I think we're putting out the best fishing rod that we need, that's out there to prevent the most catastrophic outcomes as a global population and as global business leaders.
That's it. That's it. Data is the new gold. So,
That's right.
you know, it is very essential to know these things. And it's good to show the data so that there's more positive outcomes, to the things that we're trying to do. A lot of times we're, behind the scenes at the round table trying to put these things together. But now data shows and it's more public, it's more aware, it's more open source so that people can see and be on top of it,
Mhm.
and not just like you said, tucked away somewhere in somebody's, you know, office drawer. So that's really good. That's good improvement. All right, awesome. So let me ask you, how do you feel about the future of social impact?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, social impactful business are going to be commercially impactful businesses. And I think that that's been a trend that's been well studied. There's data that, as data shows, you're able to pick and choose data sometimes that substantiates your narrative. And I think there's a lot out there that substantiates the more social, the more impactful socially, the more commercially powerful. Um, but I think, at the end of the day, we're seeing just globally this sort of breakdown of the social contract between people, between, entities, between the government and the public. And I think there's a real reckoning on like what does real leadership look like in this space? And what does social impact look like in this space when there's so many forces against these principles that, people in the social impact space believe in and stand for and work on day to day. So I think it's really, as they say, you can't have a breakthrough without a breakdown. And I think right now we're seeing that global breakdown at scale where it's like, okay, we've seen how sideways things get economically when they get sideways socially. So there's got to be some breakthrough on the horizon here, now that we've seen how bad it can get. So, it just, I think, reiterates, my gratitude to your team and to, Setsi for doing this work and making it top of mind for commercial leaders where, at the end of the day, companies are just collections of people and customers, stakeholders are just collections of people. And what's the challenge with people? We're emotional, we're illogical, and we have to work with each other. So if, the folks that are able to figure that out, I think are going to be the ones that win as we start moving into the future. And hopefully it's a victory for all, for all people, not just for, the chosen few.
That's it. That's absolutely. And I love that. I always like to break it down like that because I think too many times we are in these boardrooms and we do use the big vernacular and all that, but let's just get down to it. We're people at the end of the day. We have different emotions, different thoughts, different, way of thinking and our background even. So all those pull into, you know, just like how we live day to day and our thinking. But if we're put into just regular people and know that there's only one planet and only one body, let's really get down to the nitty gritty here and find out how we're going to survive on this planet because the planet breathes on its own. She can manage well without us.
That's
So it's
right.
really for us. It's really for the longevity of humanity is what we're trying to do here. So totally agree. Thank you for that. So wow, this is great. So if I was to like ask you, what does success look like to you, and like what would you say actually?
So success in terms of the social impact space or for my company?
Yeah, like let's tie it in. Let's tie it in
Okay.
like for what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this is probably answering both is I would love, anybody that is investing in, advising on, innovating on, or just enthusiastic about the climate is using our tool to have better foresight into how effective are these things going to be in the future that we're working on today, and what do we need to prioritize and why. So really, back to that intersection of environmental and social impact, I think if we win at Rho Impact, the world wins, because that means the world has better foresight into the decisions that need to be made today to have that inclusive, resilient, low carbon economy be a reality that we're working towards, and not a, you know, dragging our feet till the end. And then we know where that goes, right? With the water world is a real reality on the horizon. So, again, just to reiterate, if the world win, if Roe wins, if Koi's in the hand of every decision maker working on climate, the world will win, and that's a game that I'm willing to play, every day, and bet the farm on.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is something that is so key, and we know when we're talking about the future, like the next generation, look at them. They want to know the who, what, when, where, and why. So we're leaving this type of legacy or this platform, this foundation to pass on to them. And, they're asking the questions, what bags are you leaving for us to have to
Hmm.
carry? What are you doing? What are we doing in this time now to make it a little bit easier for the next generation and the next generation to come? So definitely your platform is the step in the right direction. So we really applaud what you're doing, Noah. And if you can just leave us your closing thoughts and calls to actions as we close this amazing interview.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I'd say the call to action here, whether you're working on a climate solution that you may be using Koi, or you're working on building, helping other organizations build more socially inclusive, equitable, and impactful organizations, is every entity and every individual has an impact to make, and we need to be out there providing each other with the tools, knowledge, support, infrastructure, so that we're able to raise each other up both commercially and environmentally and socially, because you can't have commercial impact without the environmental and social elements being stable and resilient and empowered. So call to action is it's time to double down. It's time to double down on the great work. And if Koi is a fishing rod that helps you to capture, to reel in a more inclusive, low carbon future, that's terrific. And if not, any work that is creating more environmentally and socially stable and resilient organizations, that is the work that needs to be done today to prevent the worst outcomes of the future. So keep on keeping on, and know that I'm there with you in body and spirit.
Awesome. That's a perfect way to end this. So Uh, thank you once again. And we will close the way that we began by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Noah, once again, on behalf of SETSI, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know we'll be collaborating in the near future. So thank you once again.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Take care.